So officially welcome this evening to the virtual VocalEye platform. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that VocalEye is broadcasting to you all this evening from the unceded, ancestral, occupied, and stolen territories of the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And again, we are all joining through the magic of Zoom, which means we're all dialing in from different lands that we're settled on. And I invite you in your own time to look up where you're settled on and learn about the lands that you're on. As we here in BC are learning more and more about our Indigenous friends who are uncovering unmarked graves of their loved ones. It's almost very difficult to speak about, so I apologize for that. We have 751 approximately in Saskatchewan, 215 in Kamloops, and 189 now in Cranbrook. So I just, folks who are keeping track of those numbers, that's 1,155 unmarked graves. So maybe just let that sink in for a moment. And I personally, I'm doing the work that I need to do to learn the truth and to reconcile in any way that I can for these atrocities that have been occurring over the past. And I know that we're going to uncover more of these graves as time goes on. And I'm not sure my heart can take that, but it's the truth of the reality that we're in right now. So I just want to pay respect and stand in solidarity for members of our community who are Indigenous peoples. Whew. Okay, friends. So welcome. It's Wednesday, July the 7th. And that means we're celebrating our virtual VocalEye number 50. That feels like a milestone. I think when you celebrate like a 50th anniversary, is that a silver anniversary or a golden? I don't know what it is, but I know it's a milestone. So thank you to all of you who have been tuning in on a regular basis. It really, really means a lot that you spend your Wednesday evenings with us. So tonight, we are going to play the final 2 audio plays from the Factory Theater. We played 3 of them a few months earlier, and today we're going to play the 2 more to complete the series of 5. And the series is You Can't Get There From Here. So it's 2 audio plays this evening, and I will introduce those audio plays in a moment. And also in a moment, I'm going to introduce our special guests, who are JJ Hunt and Ramya Amuthan, who are joining us virtually, of course, from the Toronto area to be kind of our guides through this process. I'm really excited to have them both. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Amy. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator here for VocalEye. I use she, her pronouns. And I will be your host for this evening. And I'm always pleased and proud to have that honor. And again, just before we officially start, friends, I always think that it's important for us to acknowledge our donors who have offered to help support VocalEye as we pivot through this pandemic and transfer to this online forum. Many of you have made contributions, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts for contributions that you make. Certainly, we will post a link in the chat, but you can also find links on the website, www.vocaleye.ca, if you feel like you're in a position to make a donation. Again, it's not obligatory, but it's much appreciated. And thank you for those who have made contributions. And I also just want to share with you quickly what's happening next week. So July the 14th, we're sharing Alice in Wonderland, which is a play, yes, people on a stage virtually, which has been described by our very own Eileen Barrett. And so that's going to be really exciting. So stay tuned for Alice in Wonderland, July the 14th. And then July the 21st, the week after, Tippy and Stan Part 5. So Tippy and Stan navigate the pandemic, which I'm super excited for. And some of you have followed the series of Tippy and Stan, but if you have not, we will do a recap and you won't be left behind, because these stories, these parts are kind of, although they connect to each other, they're kind of solo pieces too. So you can get a lot out of them by joining in for Part 5. Okay, friends, let's bring in JJ, let's bring in Ramya, and let's start our conversation. Welcome, JJ. Welcome, Ramya. How are you, my friends? Dialing in from the future.
Hello, Amy. Nice to chat with you again.
It's always nice to have folks in the space, especially future folks, because I always want to say, like, can you tell me the lottery numbers, please? And what was dinner like tonight?
If I had
Always
the
keeping us on
lottery
our
numbers, oh boy, do I wish I wish.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I see the lottery that's hit, I guess, again, I don't really know how the lottery works, but I guess in I don't know, is the max federal or just provincial? I don't know. It doesn't matter. But when I see it go up to like 50 million and then sometimes 70 million, I kind of think, okay, universe, I could do lots of good things with this. I could help lots of people, send it my way, but it never happens. So, well, thanks both of you for joining us. I know it's a little bit later on your end, but before we get into what we're going to experience tonight, I know, JJ, you're returning to this platform, and Ramya is new to our platform tonight because she is, and we love having her here. And so I want to just get you both to do a quick introduction to remind folks of who you are and what you do. So we'll start with JJ, and then I'll bring Ramya in to talk about who she is.
Sure. So I'm JJ Hunt. I am a Toronto boy, silver-haired, silver beard, basement-dwelling Toronto boy, and I'm an audio describer. I've been describing for about 20 years now. I describe movies and TV and live theater and live events and kind of anything and everything I can get my hands on these days. I also co-host the podcast Talk Description to Me with my friend Christine Malik. So some of you might have caught that before. And, that's really what I'm all about these days, is trying to describe kind of the unusual stuff, the quirky stuff, the stuff that has in the past fallen between the cracks. And so I'm happy to be able to participate in these kinds of conversations and these kinds of events, because this is interesting stuff, and being able to take an existing audio drama and add a little bit of descriptive support content. And, I think this is super interesting. So Amy, thank you for having me. And Steph, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it.
You're also fun. So
yeah, I do my best.
That's a plus, right? Speaking of fun, Ramya is a ton of fun too. So Ramya, some folks will know you from your work with AMI on Kelly and Company, but I don't want to spoil it. I want to leave it to you to share your introduction.
All right, thanks, Amy. Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here. I'm sure that I'm going to really enjoy this evening and what you guys are offering here. But I'm Ramya. I go by she, her pronouns. And as Amy mentioned, I work for AMI. I hang out with Kelly McDonald every day on the afternoon lifestyle and entertainment and arts show called Kelly and Company. That's 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern if you're ever wanting to listen. And aside from that, I'm really into pretty much conversing about anything. Also been trying my best to keep at it with physical activities and staying active. I co-created a chapter of the Canadian Council of the Blind here in Toronto called Adventures. Really easy name for what we do, which is just a lot of adventures, trying to stay or hop out of our own comfort zones and try some new daring activities. And ever since the pandemic, we've taken a bit of an in-person break and done some more virtual things like yoga and things like that. But hoping, fingers crossed, that we get back to some in-person activities this summer. So that's on my list.
Awesome. Well, thanks to the two of you again for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to get underway with these two audio dramas, not audio plays, and to just chat a bit about them. And the last time, JJ, you were in a space with us, you were providing us with some of the details around the locations that were talked about in these audio dramas, audio plays. I keep saying dramas. I want to say dramas. But I guess what I'm getting at is that they've got a little bit of a different flavor to them. So both of you are going to bring some of your experience of being in these neighborhoods and in some of these areas, and sharing stories. And I invite folks in the community as well, after we listen to them and we chat a little bit. If you want to chime in, you're welcome to do that. And so JJ, set up a little bit what it is we're going to experience tonight.
So we've got two plays on tonight. The first Métis Man in Odessa, and the second play, Every Minute to Every Day. And these are being produced by Factory Theatre, which is a theater founded in 1970 in Toronto, very well known for producing Canadian plays specifically. It was in fact the first theater to do so exclusively. And it's a quirky old building downtown Toronto, Bathurst and Adelaide. It's kind of, the building has two buildings kind of glommed together. There's an old house called the John Mulvey House that was built in 1896, and then the second is a large, almost like a factory style addition built in 1910. And so the house for the Factory Theatre is a Queen Anne Gothic style home. It's a quirky asymmetrical house with an irregular gabled roof, some dormers, old sash windows, some fancy gingerbread trim on the roof line, ivy growing up the side, really beautiful old, Queen Anne Gothic house. And then this factory building, which again is like a blonde brick, but it's boxier building. It's three different levels of very orderly windows. And then on top of those two buildings that are glommed together, there's a third structure that's kind of stuck onto between the two where they connect, which is a glass box. I think it's a lobby area in there, maybe a little cafe kind of space. So all these buildings glom together. And in there are several theater spaces, including a main theater space, which has I think it's 200 fixed raked seats, red seats, and a balcony with an ornate gold facade. So it's a really interesting old building, and that is where we can imagine ourselves sitting if we'd like. That's where we would be if we were all in Toronto taking in these plays at the Factory Theatre.
Some place that you've been before, JJ?
I have. It's not one of my most regular theater haunts. I've got a couple that are close by, but in my when I was in theater school and university, we had to do we had to see a lot of plays. And the Factory was one of three theaters that occupied a really nice space for theater students, where it was a lot of Canadian, a lot of new plays, things that weren't the big Mervish productions, but not fringe either. Professional plays, reasonably priced. You could go to see a show, especially if you wanted to pay what you can Sunday afternoon. And so I did get in there a fair bit to see plays. Back in the day, as they say.
Back in the day. How about you, Ramya? Have you ever been to the Factory Theatre?
I have not. So I'm actually really excited. First of all, with the JJ's description. So thank you so much. And I've been in that area, walking around, exploring downtown Toronto. But I rarely hit theater spaces in Toronto in person. So this is really exciting. I grew up in Scarborough. So a lot of the kind of community events and community theater events that I've been part of had taken place actually in where I ended up going to high school, but that's just coincidental. We just ended up using that auditorium because they rented it out a lot. And then other theaters attached to libraries here in North York and near Scarborough, like the Fairview Library. So that's what I grew up experiencing a lot more of, just kind of community theater and low-key events, community events and things like that. But this is fabulous.
It's on my bucket list. I think just because of the quirkiness of the building itself. It feels like it's someplace that you just have to experience. Kind of where the old meets the new, and the way that kind of architecture comes together can be a bit of a I don't know, like an anomaly to the brain to try and experience all those spaces in one. So it's on my bucket list, but it won't be until we're well clear to travel. I'm waiting as long as humanly possible to get on an airplane. So really excited, friends. We've got one more minute, and we just, are letting a few people trickle in as we go forward. In this last minute before we play the first audio play, which is the first Métis Man of Odessa. I know the answer to this, but JD, I'm gonna ask you just to be conversational. How long is this particular audio play?
I think this one is 30-ish minutes. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 30-ish minutes. Yep. Yeah. Just trying to be conversational, but they're both, sure. The second one is slightly a few minutes longer. So they're both around 30-ish minutes. So we'll listen to the first one, And then we'll come back and have a little chat about it. Then we'll listen to the second one and we'll have a little chat, and we'll do our prize draw for the evening, and sort of that'll be it, folks. And always our little social at the end for people who want to stick around a little longer. So with that, friends, I'm going to welcome everybody to just sit back and relax. JJ, you can turn your camera off and enjoy the first Métis Man of Odessa. So Rick, hit it.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for the second episode of You Can't Get There From Here, a brand new collection of audio dramas from Toronto's Factory Theatre. My name is Nina Lee Aquino, and I am the Artistic Director of Factory Theatre and the director of this episode. Each episode of You Can't Get There From Here is set in Toronto, and it stands on land under the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, a treaty between the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and the Anishinaabe, which includes the Mississaugas of the Credit, that bounds them to share the territory and protect the land. All Indigenous nations and settlers alike are invited to live by the treaty's terms in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still home to many Indigenous people across Turtle Island. Factory acknowledges with gratitude all the storytellers, stewards, and caretakers, recorded and unrecorded, on whose territory we are able to live and thrive. In this episode, we are so proud to present the world premiere of First Métis Man of Odessa by award-winning playwright Matthew MacKenzie, and featuring the vocal talents of Christine Horn and Craig Lazon. A captivating romantic comedy set against the backdrop of a global pandemic, this story is sure to warm even the most COVID-fatigued hearts. Whether you're listening in your homes or taking a walk through the city, we hope you enjoy this journey.
A man with a sense of humor stands the best chance in life.
Not a man with all the answers.
Not a man with an ibex-like physique.
But a man who can laugh.
In the face of almost certain defeat.
Ivan.
Ivan.
Vanya.
Vanichka.
Let us tell you
how you came to be here.
On the shores of Lake Ontario.
In Toronto.
Avdiivka, Eastern Ukraine. A field of sunflowers is all that stands between my colleagues and I and Russian-backed separatist mercenaries. We've been in Ukraine for several weeks, interviewing those caught up in a war that most of the world has forgotten. Our research culminates in a workshop in Kyiv.
Mortars fall in the distance.
In the workshop, I meet Masha, an actress originally from Odessa.
They boom closer and closer.
She is small but formidable.
Boom.
Passionate about the work.
Boom.
And unforgiving of those who don't do enough of it.
Boom. Most men get into theater so they can listen to their own voice as much as possible. But not Matthew. For 3 days, he sits and he listens. It makes me want to know what he's thinking in his head.
Masha and I start chatting after the workshop.
We strike up a friendship.
But we're both in relationships.
Nothing serious.
Well, mine is, so nothing happens.
We discuss Chekhov, Tolstoy, and Dostoevsky.
With Masha distinguishing between whether someone is a good writer or if they speak truth.
Because there's a difference.
We go out every evening with our theater colleagues and Ukrainian and American veterans.
The Ukrainians talk about revolution and high ideals. The Americans talk about cheeseburgers and strippers.
But no matter the conversation or the company, Masha and I always seem to end up embroiled in some heated debate.
Like, Who are the better singers, the Backstreet Boys or the Russian Red Army Choir?
On the day we say goodbye, we find ourselves alone on a deserted Kiev cobblestone street.
He wants to kiss me, but he's too shy.
I'm not shy. I'm in a relationship. I'm a loyal guy.
I am filled with sorrow that he's too afraid to embrace me.
I'm not afraid.
Prosjai.
We say goodbye.
This will be the last time I see him. I'm certain.
But I have a funny feeling I will see this small but formidable woman in the fur hat and silver high heels again.
To my amazement, a month after we part, Matthew begins a correspondence.
I can't get Masha out of my head.
Over many months, Matthew messages me from all across Canada, or Turtle Island, as he calls it.
Masha messages me from all over Russia and the former Eastern Bloc.
Matthew travels like a circus boy.
Masha travels like a Soviet spy.
I worry that I'm falling for somebody who's a world away, who loves somebody other than me. But Matthew's relationship ends suddenly.
After a time, I message Masha, asking if she too might have felt something when I was in Ukraine. She responds immediately.
Certainly. You conquered me.
After an avalanche of correspondence,
Romantic correspondence.
the decision is made that Masha will come visit Canada.
I caution, we must not get swept away too quickly. We're both Pisces.
My parents worry that Masha might be scamming me for money.
My parents worry that Matthew will sell me into sex slavery.
We ignore their misgivings and Masha flies to me.
Toronto is amazing!
I can't believe she thinks Toronto is amazing.
I tried venison for the first time.
With dried Saskatoon berries,
We go to Niagara Falls!
embracing in the mist.
Like in that movie with Marilyn Monroe.
We climb the mountain in Montreal.
But it isn't a mountain at all.
We stop in Odessa, Ontario.
It's nothing like the Odessa I know.
Masha tries Tim Hortons coffee for the first time.
Oh, it's appalling.
We drive past our 15th Golden Arches, and Masha tells of how after the Soviet Union fell, the first business to set up shop in Odessa from America was McDonald's.
Everyone got dressed in their best and had their picture taken in front of it.
I suggest we stop and take a formal picture in front of McDonald's as well.
His joke is unsuccessful.
Back in Toronto, we walk around Cabbagetown with my French bulldog Nev.
Matthew speaks to his dog in very unusual manner.
You tender pooch.
You nipply nugget.
Nevy, you're such a special girl. Nevy, you're...
The specialest girl in the world.
After we are intimate for the first time, Masha says dreamily,
You're not a sadist.
we go to the theater, where right before the climax of a Canadian classic, Masha memorably whispers,
We are surrounded by farters.
parting ways, we make plans to reunite in 2 months' time.
When Matthew is back on another contract in Ukraine.
Masha is convinced she will never see me again.
Every time I've ever hoped for something, it has gone down in flames.
I listen to Khachaturian's famous Russian waltz, dancing around and around my living room with Nev, dreaming of when Masha and I will be reunited.
I visit family in Russia over the holidays who worry that Matthew is CIA.
The 2 months apart are agonizing.
Matthew returns to Ukraine.
It is a very happy reunion.
We travel to Odessa
So I can see where Masha is from,
and meet my mother and father.
to assure them I am not a sex trafficker.
They're very protective of their daughter.
I've never seen drivers like the ones in Odessa. It's like every taxi is a getaway car.
My parents love Matthew.
We walk with them along the shores of the Black Sea.
We climb the steps of Potemkin.
We are serenaded by musicians in a smuggler's tavern, singing about the exploits of famed Odessa bandits.
They also sing about romance.
About bandits stealing lovers from other bandits.
They have a wide repertoire.
We go to the famed Odessa Opera House.
Buying tickets to whatever is playing that night.
Remarkably, Khachaturian's waltz plays to open the show. The very same waltz I had listened to in anticipation of being reunited with Masha again.
After the show, we sip cherry wine,
Then walked the grand promenade
dancing under the light of the moon.
to an impossibly old man with an accordion playing Celine Dion.
It is the date to end all dates.
Masha memorably grinning like Putin before falling asleep.
In the morning, Matthew must return to Canada.
We make plans to reunite
In,
two months' time.
I am convinced I will never see him again.
I leave Masha burying bodies in a field on the outskirts of the city.
Acting in German for Israeli TV.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Prost chai.
On the flight home, a sense of growing unease as I sit across the aisle from a man who just can't seem to catch his breath, coughing a dry cough as we cross the Atlantic.
Matthew leaves just in time. Virus levels are suddenly exploding.
Arriving back at Pearson, people from all over the world disembark, some clearly unwell. But there is no testing. Border officers don't even ask arrivals if they're experiencing symptoms.
2 days after Matthew and I say goodbye, the international travel ban goes into effect.
Nobody knows when the ban will be lifted. Masha and I suddenly don't know when we will be able to see each other again.
My fear realized.
1 month into the pandemic, with the international travel ban still in effect, Masha informs me before I go to sleep one night that she's
Late.
late.
Late. Right.
We agree that Masha will take a pregnancy test the next day when I'm awake and have my wits about me.
But I can't wait.
I wake the next morning to a series of pictures and emojis that tell me
A little squeakling is on its way.
decisions need to be made quickly.
Will we have our baby in Odessa or in Canada?
If we have our baby in Odessa, there's no saying when we'll be able to get a Canadian passport issued for our little one.
The embassies have stopped processing all passport and visa applications.
So we wouldn't be able to legally fly with our baby. But work won't allow me to stay in Ukraine indefinitely.
Which means we could be separated again.
The thought of being separated after reuniting
After we've welcomed our baby is
is
unbearable to me.
So we decide we must have our baby in Canada. But Masha's visitor's visa that got her into Canada before isn't enough anymore,
I now must be married to a Canadian national in order to enter.
as per strict new COVID rules.
So, I will give up my flat and move my things from Kiev to Odessa.
I'll figure out how to fly across the world in the middle of a global pandemic.
I'll buy a dress.
I'll buy a tux.
I'll book a band.
I'll pick the flowers,
We
will
will
marry.
marry. Then we will travel to Canada.
where we will welcome our squeakling.
Our baby boy. After 4 endless months apart,
With Canadians still unable to enter Ukraine.
and foreigners still unable to enter Canada unless they're married to a Canadian national,
We decide to book my flight anyway.
praying that travel restrictions will be eased by the time his flight leaves in 2 weeks' time and he will be permitted entry.
The day before I'm booked to depart, the international travel ban is partially lifted.
Canadians are now allowed into Europe.
I board my plane at Pearson the next morning,
His itinerary taking him first to Germany, then to Turkey,
but we have no idea if I'll be allowed into Ukraine.
or if he will be deported upon arrival.
Officially, Ukraine requires anyone entering the country to carry health insurance that will cover the costs of a hospital stay if they contract COVID, but no health insurer in the world is offering coverage for the virus.
Unofficially, my mother's contact with border services believes they will not bar Matthew entry so long as he can prove he has money.
Ultimately, much will hinge on the mood of the border officer, which makes me extremely uneasy.
Landing in Frankfurt, Matthew jumps the first hurdle, barely catching his connecting flight.
Touching down in Turkey, I line up for my flight from Istanbul to Kyiv. My heart starts racing when it becomes clear that Turkish Airlines are inspecting everyone's insurance to make sure they will be permitted to enter Ukraine.
Matthew panics. He texts that he doesn't know if he'll be allowed on the flight.
Right ahead of me, a pack of American military contractors are told they can't get on the plane, and they lose it on Turkish Airlines.
Ha! Americans behaving badly.
By the time I come up with my boarding pass and proof of insurance, the attendant is extremely flustered. He immediately notes that my insurance does not specifically state I am covered for COVID, to which I respond musically with the line Masha drilled into me.
It doesn't say it doesn't cover me for COVID.
This gives the attendant pause. Then the Americans resume their barrage, so the attendant just gives me a grim nod and lets me board.
As Matthew flies to Kiev, I receive countless messages from my parents in Odessa and Matthew's family in Canada wanting to know if he's made it. If he is deported, we will have to wait a year before he can even attempt to re-enter the country. I am 5 months pregnant.
On the flight, half of the Americans have somehow managed to browbeat their way on board. So my strategy when we touch down in Kyiv is to simply be at the back of the line again. And once again, the Americans lose it on the Ukrainian border guards, and I stand in line for well over 2 hours as they rage.
While Matthew waits, my phone is exploding. I tell everybody he's arrived safely, but we are waiting to see if he will be granted entry. His mother in Alberta messages begging me to tell him not to make any jokes with the border officers. My mother in Odessa messages asking if he ate on the plane. Our friends in Toronto message saying that if he's detained to call the Canadian embassy immediately. My aunt in Russia messages also asking if Matthew ate on the flight. I message Matthew, my battery is dying!
By the time I get to the border agent, I am the last person in line. The agent says to me, "Oh, you're Canadian." She stamps my passport and in a thick accent says, "Welcome to Ukraine."
Matthew has been granted entry.
I find Masha outside the airport. She has been waiting 5 hours for me.
It is a very happy reunion, indeed.
We travel from Kyiv back to Odessa,
By train.
where we go into quarantine. After the mandatory 2 weeks, Masha and I madly arrange our wedding.
Everyone charges us double.
When they learn I'm foreign,
Cruel Slavic tradition.
but we are able to organize everything amazingly.
Expensively.
We marry on a beautiful summer day in the heart of Odessa.
But due to a misunderstanding, Matthew nearly misses the ceremony.
I got the time wrong. Everyone's always speaking in Russian.
He was dancing to Khachaturian in his hotel room.
I make it,
Just in time.
but before I can take Masha's arm, her friends must ask me 3 questions as per Ukrainian custom.
What is Masha's favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
What is Masha's favorite dessert?
Ice cream.
When is Masha's birthday? My whole family is watching and filming.
Now, what gave me pause
It was a long pause.
is that International Women's Day
An important day in Ukraine.
is either right before or right after Masha's birthday.
He pauses for an eternity. But answers correctly. Following the ceremony, we Zoom with over 100 of Matthew's friends and family.
It is a very strange thing to get married with no one you know attending.
Matthew's mother cries throughout her speech, filled with sorrow that she cannot be with her son at his wedding.
After Zooming, we dance the night away to a klezmer band that nearly outnumbers our wedding party.
As I had always dreamed on the shores of the Black Sea.
Other couples who have married the same day hear that a foreigner has paid for a full klezmer band, so they show up to dance.
Shara.
Rough translation.
Enjoying something for free. Slavic tradition.
Well, they are most welcome.
6 Odessa couples dance on the beach as the sun sets.
All safely distanced.
Now that we are married, we are in a race to get our documents officially translated and stamped.
Masha is 6 months pregnant.
If I am showing,
There is a chance she won't be let on a flight back to Canada.
Our former Soviet bureaucracy drives Matthew to the edge of insanity.
Even when we drive across the city to get the right stamp, there is no guarantee that the office staff won't be on an extended break.
Everyone is working reduced hours due to COVID.
After many an ordeal, we finally get all of our documents in order.
And are able to purchase our tickets to Canada.
But the day before we are to leave, my foot gets infected.
And my mother is diagnosed with COVID.
I can't walk.
We must isolate and get tested.
So we are forced to delay our departure. The next morning, Masha's father,
Who is a doctor?
comes to her flat to perform laser therapy on my foot.
My father wonders if Matthew's issue might be psychological.
I am in excruciating pain, but my foot looks fine. It's very frustrating.
Virus numbers are increasing exponentially, and our fragile health system is in danger of collapsing, my father tells me.
We need to get out of Ukraine.
I administer laser therapy 4 times a day for a week until Matthew can walk again.
After another week, we test negative, and Masha's mother fully recovers from COVID.
We are able to see her the night before we leave.
Mercifully.
We say goodbye, not knowing when we will see my parents again.
Our flight takes us first through Germany, then to Canada.
Changing planes in Frankfurt, we must provide our wedding documents and passports.
The attendant shakes his head as he looks at our marriage certificate.
I don't know if he can read English or Ukrainian.
I start to fret.
Viel Spaß.
Masha charms the attendant in German.
He lets us pass.
Arriving at Pearson, our next hurdle is getting past Canadian customs.
All our papers are in order.
But we have no idea if official Ukrainian documents will be recognized in Canada.
My parents messaged me repeatedly, worried I will be sent back to Ukraine and our son will be born illegitimately.
We are beckoned forward to present our papers.
The border officers outnumber the arrivals.
Our fate rests on the mood of this border officer.
He congratulates us on our marriage.
He then asks if we have any COVID-like symptoms, to which Masha responds.
Yes.
The officer's eyes bug. Any foreign national exhibiting symptoms must be immediately deported.
No, she didn't understand you. She means no, Matthew responds.
To which Masha coolly nods.
Welcome to Canada, the border officer says, slowly handing our documents back to us.
Greeted at arrivals by my family,
They present me with Tim Hortons coffee.
which Masha declines politely.
Matthew's family are very welcoming.
They are taken with Masha immediately.
I say, I have come for Matthew's money.
My family are mortified.
I assure them I'm joking. Nobody marries playwright for money, not even Ukraine.
We enter quarantine, setting up in a little one-bedroom.
And prepare for the arrival of our squeakling.
We chase health coverage for Masha. Even with all the papers in order, there is no telling how long it will take to process her application.
COVID has changed everything, just like in Ukraine.
I go to a sweat where prayers are sung for our son and the health of his mum.
While Matthew is gone, I receive a call on my new phone from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, stating that a warrant has been issued for someone with my same name. They're accused of shipping a large quantity of cocaine, and that I must send my personal banking information right away to prove that it is not me or risk being arrested immediately.
By the time I get home, Masha is in a state of panic.
I will be deported.
No, you won't be.
I am at the mercy of Canadian authorities. They will send me away.
Nobody is sending anybody away.
I left my life behind. No one even knows who I am in this place, that I'm an artist, an actress.
We just arrived.
I left behind my family. I left behind everything. All I have is in 2 bags on my belly.
You have me.
I did not ship cocaine.
Baby, no Canadian authority would ever ask for personal banking information over the phone.
Press vote.
A scam.
It is not only in Ukraine where one might fall prey.
Still embarrassed, Masha doesn't believe the next day that an email she receives from the Odessa Film Festival is legitimate.
They say I'm nominated for Best Actress.
That's great!
It's bullshit.
Maybe write them back, just in case?
Fine. I am What?
For a Golden Duke, Ukraine's Academy Awards.
Right after I leave the country, suddenly they like me.
Rather than walk the red carpet and attend the awards ceremony at the Odessa Opera House, Masha sets up to Zoom in a closet in our apartment.
But still dressed to impress.
And she wins!
My mother loses it.
Messages of congratulations pour in.
I'm cheering in a closet.
We play Khachaturian's waltz and dance around the apartment.
And this is more for Matthew's enjoyment.
My family toasts Masha's success.
They are very generous.
We roll out the slip and slide.
So I can walk down the red carpet?
Then we fall asleep, still dressed up.
Like we would have if we had celebrated in Odessa. But in the morning, nothing has changed.
You won Best Actress.
I am still almost 9 months pregnant in foreign land without health insurance.
Waiting for the application for health insurance to be processed is a nerve-wracking period. If we are forced to pay to have our baby in Canada, the cost will bankrupt us.
The second our son is born, he is Canadian.
But before then, he is foreign.
Less than 5 days before I'm due, my health coverage comes through.
The day before Masha goes into labor, the ward where she will be giving birth is declared a COVID hotspot.
Right after midnight, my water breaks. 7 hours later, we go to the hospital, where we find the emergency room door out of order.
I gesticulate wildly to the custodian inside the building.
He gesticulates wildly back.
We are both quite short.
It's like two Oompa Loompas performing the haka.
I shout,
How do we get to the delivery room?
and the custodian shouts back.
You can't get there from here.
I'm ready to lose my mind when Masha says calmly behind me,
Nobody has to die.
We find a working door and get Masha to the delivery room.
I push for 5 hours.
Without an epidural.
I want the birth to be natural.
I tell the nurse that I'm a fainter.
She doesn't let Matthew leave his chair.
I ask, how will we know if I'm the baby's father?
I tell Matthew, it is better to make unsuccessful jokes than to faint right now.
Masha and our baby are in trouble.
I push and I push, but he won't come out.
Nurses and doctors flood the room.
They say they need to help our son come out.
Masha agrees to the help.
And I push.
Ivan doesn't cry when he's delivered.
The nurses rush him off.
Masha's in distress.
I can't hear his voice.
The nurse ushers me over.
To tell him our baby is stillborn, I'm sure.
The nurse passes me the scissors to cut the last of Ivan's cord.
I hear his voice.
Ivan cries out.
The nurses bring Ivan to me.
Masha and I shed tears of joy.
I hold him close to my heart.
Our little boy.
Who's that? Who's that? Who's that?
So, that is how you came to be here.
On the shores of Lake Ontario.
In Toronto.
With a mother who loves you.
And a father whose jokes are not always successful.
Ivan.
Ivan.
Vanichka.
The first Métis Man of Odessa.
Welcome back, friends. That was the first Métis Man of Odessa. Let's welcome JJ and Ramya back into the space. After that lovely storytelling, oh, somebody's posted a reactionary heart. I'm just learning about these reactions, folks. So we got a heart. So I love that. JJ, I know that we were talking earlier about the fact that this one is less about sort of places in Ontario and more about an experience during the pandemic. And I know that you relate to this piece in a specific way. So maybe share with us a little bit about that. Once you unmute. I think we have to allow you to unmute. Look, I'm a describer and I didn't even know it. Awesome. We got you now.
There we go.
There we go.
Woo.
Woo.
It's amazing the stress of not being able to unmute yourself. It's such a funny little, like, quirky stress. I can't unmute.
You'd think we'd be used to that by now too, right?
I know. Yes. So this piece does have a bit of additional anxiety for me in that I was doing some traveling when this pandemic hit. And so I got caught in a not entirely dissimilar situation. There are no babies, no marriages, but this need to travel in the middle of the pandemic. And it was quite something. It really was. It was quite something.
Yeah, it's interesting to me how I know that this is a piece that is likely fiction. I don't think that it's based on a true story, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, I wondered.
It's a curiosity to me because there's a lot of anxiety, obviously, in these two people, and I absolutely get that. But they seem to have come through it relatively unscathed. In terms of I like the process is chaotic, but they ended up being where they needed to be when they needed to be there to some extent. How about for you, Ramya?
Wondering.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna piggyback off that thought and wondering throughout whether it was gonna be kind of a happy / fairy tale ending or not, just because I mean it started off that way, right? Where you were thinking, okay, it's gonna be wrapped up nicely because this is a story of the past. And you knew it was going to be a romantic comedy, but there were some moments that were kind of triggering, like especially at the end where they point out that, you know, surely it's going to be a stillbirth. And I'm like, uh-oh, but can it be? Right? Like you just tossed into that. But also I love that I know this was a very, you know, pandemic specific scenario with all the traveling, but there were so many moments where I'm like, yeah, I totally get that, where it's like, yeah, this whole thing depends on the mood of the officer, right? So, stuff like that where I'm like, yep, that's even with regular travel, I'm always kind of nervous saying, oh, I wonder if they're going to think I'm lying, or, you know, how do I word this so they don't get suspicious? And it could be literally just traveling to NYC for the day. So
God, I feel a little bit that way when and not that I travel to the US very often, but it's a little different for me only because I was actually born in the US. So sometimes I get flack when I go into the US about not having a US passport. And so then they want to ask me all these questions about, so when I travel, I'm like, yep, here's my tax return, my US tax return for the last 3 years. Here's my birth certificate. Like I can prove that I'm a tax-paying air quote citizen. I just don't have a US passport. It's a little bit harder to get because I guess now you could probably do it by mail, but there was a time where you had to like go down there and it's like, well, when is the next time I'm going to go down to get a passport? Right. Yeah. Anyways. So I get that too. I get a little nervous sometimes with some of the border guards because I think, they have the right to do pretty much whatever they want to do with me. And I have no say. So, are there moments for you, JJ, that really stuck out in this piece?
Well, you know, those moments when they were, you know, as we're talking about going from border to border and hopping from one place to another in strange routes, the strange routing that is required to get home. When I was traveling in March, so my family and I, we were on a year off. We were supposed to be, my kids have been pulled out of school. My wife took a leave from work, and we were supposed to be gone for a year from August 2019 to August 2020. And of course, March pandemic hit, we had to come home, and we were in the middle of, we were in central Vietnam at the time. And we had to get back, and we had in the same way that in the story, the authorities, you can feel the weight of the authorities, and you know what the rules are where you are, or you think you know what the rules are where you are, but the shifting. We actually got a visit from the Vietnamese health authority, and making sure that we were following protocols. And thank goodness we had an Airbnb host who could translate for us, because the health authority didn't speak English. We didn't speak Vietnamese. So we had someone translating, and it became clear. We were able to say, we are leaving the country in 48 hours. But we had to get from central Vietnam to Hanoi in the north. And the train had already been shut down. And they were starting to put foreigners in army bases in quarantine, and we just need to get. So we booked an overnight bus, took an overnight bus to Hanoi, went straight to a hotel, stayed overnights, got up in the morning, flew to Tokyo, and then to Tokyo. And it was really interesting in Tokyo. You had people from all over Asia. This is one of the last groups of people getting out of the country and getting back into Canada before they were, closing borders and whatnot. And the airport was empty, absolutely empty, except for one gate. So this entire airport, there's like banks and banks and banks of empty seats. All the restaurants and cafes completely closed. And you had to walk. It was gate number 22 of 22. So you had to walk by 21 empty gates with no one sitting. You finally got to the end, and it was crowded because that was the one plane leaving, and people from the Philippines were there. And there was someone from India who was there. They were somehow they were in Tokyo, had been in India, and that was the only route that they could get to get back into Canada. These strange routings. And then the anxiety on the top of everyone's faces, it was really quite something. And so those moments in the play of that kind of the crazy pathway, the visuals that were popping back up to me, or of that airport in Tokyo when everyone was anxious about trying to get through, trying to get by,
That's quite a story, JJ.
Yeah, it was a little bit it was anxious times. Then we got back and we were in quarantine in the same situation where they kept changing the rules on our quarantine, and I remember so clearly, it was when we got off the plane, in the same way that the border guards didn't even know the questions to ask. We all had to, they had a touch screen that everyone had to stop at the same touch screen and indicate whether they had followed different quarantining protocols and whatever. And I thought, but we're all touching the same touch screen. Like, you clearly have not worked this out. The systems were not in place,
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting too about the timelines? Because, what you're describing, you were in the thick of it, especially at the beginning of all of this, right? Where people are kind of like, we don't know what's happening, but we know that stuff is happening. Whereas I felt I was traveling back from Brazil, the first time I've ever been to Brazil, and it was for like dancing competition type stuff that we were there for. But we didn't hear anything about COVID-19. And yet this was right at the start of when we were starting to hear about COVID-19. But for some reason, there was no like verbalizing or anything of that sort while we were on our trip. And then only after we landed back in Toronto, safe and sound, nothing of the whole, travelers getting sick or anything like that. But we came here, and the very next day started to hear about borders closing, people being stuck in different countries, cruise ships getting not being able to dock. So I was like, how fluke is it that we missed this? Because we're absolutely like not in North America.
Yeah.
And at any given moment could have been stuck, but we didn't. And then I was hearing other people's stories like yours, JJ, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, we missed this by probably hours.
Yeah. Wow. Does that make either of you, I'm just curious, does it give you anxiety about traveling again? I mean,
oh yeah,
I'm hoping a couple of years from now, this pandemic thing won't even be an issue, but we don't know that. It could be the new version of the air quotes common flu, and we have to get vaccinated every year. So does that stress you out about future travel?
It scares me to be stuck in a different country. 100%. I'm so nervous. Like I'm much more lenient on, yeah, let's do road trips or let's explore Ontario or even, take a flight to the other side of the country, right? But I'm very, very nervous about how much I'm going to be paying for traveling outside the country, and B, just being stuck there. Cause I don't know what that would look like, feel like logistically. And especially, as we heard in the audio play right here, the healthcare and all this kind of stuff, and being able to know what am I going to be covered for when I'm out there. And I don't know if that's going to be something of a norm moving forward.
It's, there's going to be a change in, I mean, we've already seen the change in medical, but there's also going to be a change in terms of like cancellation policies and all of those kinds of things. So if something happens and you're in the middle of somewhere and you need to cancel the rest of your, so I think there's going to be some big changes if they're not already in place. But I too have not traveled internationally, so I don't know. How about for you, JJ? Does that just make you nervous, or?
In some ways it does, and in some ways I have the opposite reaction, and I get this a lot when I travel. I think it's one of the great things about travel is that you are constantly put in positions of you're being challenged and things are difficult. And one of the great benefits of that is, by and large, you overcome those challenges moment by moment, day by day. And so, as it happens on this trip that we were on, we passed through a tropical storm. We were caught in Colombia. We had to stay in we were in Bogota when there was major political strife and there was a mass protests while we were there. We got through that. We got ourselves from the middle of Vietnam all the way home in 48 hours. So there's part of me that feels like, what we did. And that was traveling with kids, we managed to do all that. So maybe actually it's okay. Maybe we're strong enough and resilient enough and creative enough, and
you chalk that up to life experience. Yeah,
totally. And lucky enough, because we are Canadians with Canadian passports and really good health insurance. Then shout out to World Nomads, our travel insurance that actually continued to cover us while we were traveling, even in COVID hotspots. And so on one hand, it does make me nervous. It does make me anxious. Making sure I have all those ducks in a row is going to be even more important. But on the other hand, I think, not that I'm like, I feel arrogant about it. Like we can handle anything, but there is something to facing a bit of the fire and getting through and thinking, no, we'll be okay. People will be okay.
Yeah.
Definitely shows how adventurous you are.
He needs to join your adventures club.
That's right.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got a hand from Megan, so I'll just ask Megan to unmute and ask a question or share a comment.
Yes, actually, hold on, sis. Anyway, what it is, yes. So, hold on a second. Hold on. Yes, it's there. Yeah, I'm there. For your health. Yes. Yeah,
a couple of conversations happening right here.
Sorry, I'm trying.
That's okay, Megan.
Anyway, so about the flip, the play. Yeah. Did they have? Oh yes. Were there any smoking areas that had to be cut off in Vietnam and Tokyo?
That is it's so funny you would ask that. I was talking to my wife just before we logged on, and I was saying, do you remember that experience? Do you remember that? Like, what are some of the things that stands out to you? What are some of the visuals you remember? And one of the things that struck me was that there was, in the Tokyo airport, there was a smoking lounge that was attached. It was just off of our gate. And so while all the rest of us, the non-smokers, were waiting for our flight, we all had to have masks on. We all had, waiting for the hand sanitizers, the whole bit. The smoking room was open and people kept going in and out. in this cloudy room. You could barely see, and it was a glass-walled room, and you could barely see anything going on. And it was just full of smoke, except a bunch of people without their masks on, smoking. And I remember thinking, this is wrong on so many levels. This is so, like, your health is good. Put the mask back on, even just for the smoke. Forget about for COVID reasons. Like, just smoke through your mask or something. But it's so funny that you would ask that. That's really interesting. Thanks for the question.
You know, the thing about smoking through the mask is, I didn't see this myself personally, but I was told in the space that there was somebody who had cut a hole in their mask. Around their lips, and they were going back between sucking something on a straw and smoking.
Oh my.
And it's like, but once you cut the hole in the mask, like, it's useless.
I think there's something here you're not getting.
Yeah.
We had a lot of that in Vietnam because there's a lot of mask wearing in general, much more so than there is in North America. Sometimes it's for pollution reasons, sometimes it's for worried about disease and whatnot. But there's a real comfort with it. So people are constantly pulling masks on and off, and pulling your mask down to spit, and then putting the mask back on. And of course, as North Americans, we have a different understanding of all of that, thinking, oh my God, you guys aren't using these properly. If you're going to use them at all, and it turns out Vietnam, they were so much better at controlling spread because of their mask use, and they kind of put us to shame. So
it's already like the cultural norm, right? It wasn't
exactly
in North America. We're like, what? I have to wear a mask? Why? I've never done that
exactly.
before. Yeah. Well, friends, I've enjoyed this little chit chat, but I do know that we have another audio play to listen to. So I'm going to invite you to mute yourself, turn your cameras off, and I'm going to ask Rick to play our second audio play, which is Every Minute of Every Day. And we'll come back and chat about it afterwards.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for the 4th episode of You Can't Get There From Here, a brand new collection of audio dramas from Toronto's Factory Theatre. My name is Nina Lee Aquino, and I am the Artistic Director of Factory Theatre. Each episode of You Can't Get There From Here is set in Toronto, and it stands on land under the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, a treaty between the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and the Anishinaabe, which includes the Mississaugas of the Credit, that bounds them to share the territory and protect the land. All Indigenous nations and settlers alike are invited to live by the treaty's terms in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. Today, the meeting place of Takaranto is still home to many Indigenous people across Turtle Island. Factory acknowledges with gratitude all the storytellers, stewards, and caretakers, recorded and unrecorded, on whose territory we are able to live and thrive. In this episode, we are proud to present the world premiere of Every Minute of Every Day by award-winning playwright Keith Barker, directed by Akosia Amo-Adem, and featuring the vocal talents of Allison Edwards-Crew and Marcia Johnson. This striking new memory play explores why we hold on to memories and how they diverge in a city with a landscape that is constantly being erased and rebuilt. Every minute of every day is sure to make you see how people share and shape memories differently, and how time itself can even make you forget why family ruptures happen in the first place. Whether you're listening in your homes or taking a walk through the city, we hope you enjoy this journey.
Morning.
Morning.
Don't look too surprised.
I'm not. I'm just...
You didn't think I would come?
No, I wasn't sure.
If I would show up.
That's not what I was going to say.
But it's what you're thinking.
I don't want to fight with you.
I don't want to fight with you.
You arrived last night?
Yeah, I drove in. The 401 is a lot busier than I remember.
More condos, more people, more cars on the road.
Anyways, I drove in after dinner, but traffic was still terrible.
More condos, more people.
More traffic on the 401, I get it. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this stuff.
Me neither. Hey, we made it this far?
I was surprised by the invitation.
I was surprised you came.
So you were surprised?
More relieved than anything.
Wow, these are fancy couches.
Yeah, fancy enough.
You think they're real leather?
It is the Royal York, after all.
You remember walking through here with Mom and Dad on our way to Union Station?
He was pretty run down back then.
Not anymore. They sure fancied the place up.
Sold it to an American chain.
Of course they did.
You sleep well?
No, my room's too bright. This city has too many lights on.
Why didn't you close the curtains?
It's not just that. There's this constant humming sound that goes on here.
I've never heard it.
I could never live here. It's too...
What?
Liberal.
You know that Canada's largest financial district is a few blocks from here, right?
So is the CBC.
The CBC is not liberal.
Well, it's definitely not conservative.
Anyway, do you need a coffee before we go?
No, I'm not paying $8 for one of those fancy schmancy coffees.
Oh, there's a Tim's outside.
I'm fine. I drank the coffee in my room. For the price I'm paying, I'm taking all the freebies I can get. I even snagged 2 soaps and a shampoo off the cart on my way down here.
Fran.
What? No one noticed?
That's not the point. For once, can you try to enjoy yourself without thinking about the money?
I am enjoying myself. I love freebies and hotel coffee.
More than Tim's?
Okay. Maybe I will grab one on the way out. Which way are we going?
South doors. This way. Ah!
You okay?
Yeah, why?
Well, you look tired.
You look old. So what's your point?
Just trying to help. With everything that happened.
Okay, here's the deal. You're not my mother, so don't start pulling that stuff with me, got it?
Got it.
Good. Let's go.
Where do you want to go first?
I thought we'd start at the CN Tower.
Sure. Where are you going?
It's this way.
Yeah, but the cabs are over here.
I'd rather walk.
You can't get there.
From here?
It's too far.
It's just over there.
It's not just over there. It's like 8 blocks over there.
It's a 5-minute walk.
If we were running, maybe.
I'm not driving 3 city blocks. Now let's go.
God, I haven't been down here in years.
So much has changed.
I used to hate it when Dad would force us to drive 3 hours to come down here for a friggin' baseball game.
He always had this way of explaining the game that made it fun to watch.
Sitting on the edge of his seat, telling us all the different strategies.
Yelling at the umps.
Sometimes, when I really miss him, I'll throw a game on.
Me too.
Weird.
Yeah. Hearing Jerry Howard's voice just always reminded me of Dad.
When he retired, he took a bit of Dad with him.
He really did. One of my favorite memories is that first summer we had in the city. You and me sitting in the 500 seats of the Sky Dome with the roof wide open. It was a hot night and we were nursing our overpriced beers, watching the Jays play and making fun of each other all night long. It was the first time I felt like we were adults. Like we had arrived.
Dad would be so happy to hear that right now.
He would. And then he'd have to tell us his favorite story. In April 1977, I went to the first ever Blue Jays game. Me and 44,000 of my closest friends.
With no beer.
That's right. It was the only ballpark that didn't sell beer.
With everyone shouting, "We want beer! We want beer!"
He loved telling that story.
Oh my God.
What?
It says here it's $50 to go to the top.
That surprises you?
Yeah. $100 for the two of us? I mean, I'll pay, of course, but come on.
I don't want to go up.
What do you mean you don't want to go up?
I just want to see it from here.
You're the only person I know who goes to the CN Tower to see it from the bottom.
The top is for tourists.
And what am I?
You've spent enough time here to be an honorary citizen.
Ew. Gross.
Oh, don't give me that. I saw your Facebook page when the Raptors won, wearing your In the Six t-shirt.
What do you mean?
In the six. In the 416?
Yeah, repeating it doesn't make it any clearer.
It's the prized area code. Before 647, there was only 416.
I bought it for the logo.
Admit it, you loved it when the Raptors won.
Hey, I loved basketball long before Toronto even had a team.
Did you or did you not love it when the Toronto Raptors won the NBA championship?
So, we're not going up?
You're avoiding the question.
I'm choosing not to answer it.
Kawhi or Lowry?
Lowry? Kawhi left. But I did lose my mind when he made that shot.
Oh, what a run.
What a run.
I almost texted you a few times.
You should have.
We both should have.
Yeah. You sure you don't want to go up?
I'm sure. This is good right here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you! Ready?
It's your call.
I'm ready. The cabs are this way.
Is it just me, or is the condo situation a bit too intense down here?
Yeah, it's pretty full on.
Where are we heading next?
Massey Hall.
Ooh, nice choice. We saw a lot of good concerts there.
Best job I ever had was working at Massey Hall.
Favorite concert?
Oh, that's a tough one. You?
It's gotta be Aretha Franklin.
Good choice. I think I have to go with Tracy Chapman.
Yes!
With Van Morrison being a very close second.
Oh my god. That was a terrible night for me.
Why?
Because I tried to pick up, what's his name? The really tall guy you worked with.
Desmond?
Yeah. We spent the whole concert singing and dancing, having a good time. Then when they started playing Someone Like You, I thought we were both feeling it, and I tried to kiss him, but he shot me down pretty quick.
You didn't know he was gay?
Not until he told me. Oh, he was so nice about it, but I couldn't deal with the rejection, so I was rude to him.
Is that why you left that night?
Yeah. I was too embarrassed to talk to him about it, so we stopped being friends after that.
Kinda like what you did to me.
Hey, the phone works both ways.
I called you.
Yeah, but you never left a message.
And you didn't pick up the phone.
I was mad.
And I was hurt. Anyways, I'm here now.
Whatever.
Oh, don't pout.
I'm not pouting. I can't just turn off my feelings like a light switch.
Me neither. But there's not a lot of time.
I know. I know.
How's about a hug?
You know I don't like hugs.
Hey, what about a smile? Come on, you can do better than that.
That's all I got.
If you don't give me a genuine smile, I'll start singing.
Don't.
Ooh, I think I feel some Celine coming on. There were nights where the wind was so cold.
Ah, you drive me up the friggin' wall. There. You happy?
Ooh, it's a bit too manic for me.
You know what?
Okay, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. There was one good thing about that night. He made me a believer.
Desmond made you a Justin Bieber fan?
No. I mean, Despacito is a guilty pleasure, but that's not what I meant. Van Morrison made me a believer in the power of music.
I had that with Johnny Cash. I mean, who knew country music could be that good?
The Man in Black did not disappoint.
No, he didn't.
I bet I know what your biggest surprise concert was.
Sigur Rós. The guy played a guitar with a violin bow.
That music was meant to be played at Massey Hall.
Yeah, it's a pretty magical place. I'm glad they're renovating it.
Me too. You want to get out?
No, I'm good. I just wanted to see it one more time. Now, this place gave me the soundtrack to the rest of my life. For that, I'm very grateful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Onwards?
Onwards. Wow, this whole section of Yonge Street has really changed. What's with all the obnoxious screens everywhere?
They tried to make it like Times Square.
Why would they want to do that?
Revenue? Apparently the guy who designed it regrets it now.
I bet. Hey, what happened to Sam the Record Man?
Doesn't exist anymore.
That's too bad. You'd think they'd at least keep the sign up.
Apparently they moved it to another street.
If it's not on Yonge Street, then what's the point?
Exactly.
I see the world's biggest bookstore is gone too.
A lot of the great bookstores are gone now.
I heard they tore down Honest Ed's.
Actually, they tore down the whole block.
What was that pub with the great patio? You know, the one under the trees?
The Victory Cafe. Gone.
What about that comic book store?
The VocalEye? It's still open, but it's on College now.
Well, that's something. I can't believe they demolished the whole block.
So much history gone. I used to line up for a free turkey at Honest Ed's every December. Me and a few hundred
of my closest friends.
Well, I met Ed one year when he came out to shake people's hands. I didn't realize how small he was, but he smelled good and had a firm handshake. Oh, and just so you know, the Brunswick House is now a pharmacy.
Say it ain't so.
We spent too many Saturday nights waiting in line to get into that place.
All I remember is benches, beer, and home for a rest.
For me, it was Rockin' Irene and Nate the Great. Oh, hey, turn here so we can drive by the village.
Is Woody still there?
Of course it is. Who would get rid of Toronto's queer cheers?
I saw my first drag show there. What was the name of that restaurant where we played Dirty Bingo?
Zelda's.
That's it.
Also closed.
Damn. I won a dildo there one night and left it on the kitchen counter by accident. Try explaining that to Mom the next morning.
You didn't.
She couldn't even look me in the eye. I said it was for a friend.
That makes it even worse.
She gave me this look of pity and then walked away.
I found her vibrator once.
You didn't.
She asked me to grab a bra out of her underwear drawer.
Oof.
I didn't say a thing.
We are so lame.
Nothing like some good old-fashioned shame on the drive through memory lane.
Good times.
Coming up on our right, Maple Leaf Gardens.
Oh, wow. They've really fixed the place up.
It's a Loblaws now.
Huh. Well, at least they didn't tear it down.
I got to walk through the place during Nuit Blanche before the renovation. It was wild. I guess when the Leafs left, they basically just shut the doors and moved to the Air Canada Centre. It was like a time capsule.
I only ever went to one game. Tickets have always been too expensive.
Actually, it's not the gardens I remember, but the Golden Griddle across the street.
Do you remember meeting Wendell Clark there?
Of course I do. It was the only time I ever saw Dad speechless.
We panicked and asked him to sign his menu. Then he tried to sneak out of the restaurant with it.
I don't know why he thought putting it down his pants was the best idea.
Watching Dad try to get out of the booth without bending his legs is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
The whole restaurant ended up watching us leave.
Including Wendell Clark.
And Dad, trying to be all serious.
Keep it together, you two.
As he limps around, trying not to bend the menu down his pants.
Him dancing when we got around the corner.
Priceless!
I still have the menu framed in my kitchen.
It's nice.
Hey, jet fuel!
Still my favorite coffee shop in the world.
Didn't we watch the Tour de France here?
We did.
Lattes in a pint glass.
So good. You know, the owner was the one who convinced me to ride a bicycle in the city? Best decision I ever made.
For you, maybe. I'm the one who had to deal with Mom. Who knew a pink bicycle would cause her so much stress?
And me so much happiness.
I always found the baristas grumpy.
But that was the cool part. I remember the guy snapped at me once because I didn't know what I wanted. And then on my way out, he gave me this smile like, we're good. Best feeling ever.
Hey, isn't this the cemetery you always liked walking through?
Yeah, St. James. I went to a funeral here once and then just kept going back.
Whose funeral?
My friend Chris's dad.
It's a big place.
Perfect for taking a walk, clearing your head.
Hey, I remember this subway station.
Castle Frank.
That's it. I was still new to the TTC and I got off at Castle Frank instead of Broadway.
Broadview.
Whatever. But I didn't grab one of those little,
Transfers?
Yeah, those things. The guy clearly saw me walk out of there, but he wouldn't let me back in unless I paid another fare. I was like, no thank you, I'll walk.
You didn't.
I did. And that's when I learned that no one should ever walk that bridge in January. Where is this next place?
Up here on the left. Chester Hill Lookout. It's my favorite view of the city.
I forgot about this place.
It always reminds me of Michael Ondaatje's book, In the Skin of a Lion.
Never read it.
It's about how immigrants helped build the city. Viaduct plays a big part in it.
What a view.
Yeah. This is where I truly fell in love with the city. And where I say goodbye to it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm ready.
Last stop?
Scarborough Bluffs.
Perfect. Well, here we are.
Oh, I love this beach.
Me too.
Thanks for this.
I was just following your instructions.
It was perfect.
It would have been.
Yeah.
Every time I think of you in the hospital, alone, surrounded by people wearing all that gear, with no one allowed to touch you.
I was okay.
I know you said that on the phone, but I could hear it in your voice.
Everyone at the hospital was so good to me.
It's just not how I imagined it would be.
We had a good plan, though.
We did.
Sometimes things just don't work out the way we plan.
I can't shake this feeling that I let you down.
You didn't know we would end up in a lockdown?
If we had done it a week earlier.
Oh, you can't think of it that way.
I just wanted a chance to say goodbye for real.
I heard you on the phone. When you told me I could let go.
You did. I didn't want you to be alone in that moment.
I wasn't.
Still.
Look at me. You see this smile? It means I'm at peace. Now it's your turn.
Yeah. That one's going to take me a while.
I know. I know. But this is a start.
It is. I miss you, Peanut. And just one thing left to do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, friends, welcome back. That was kind of a different piece than what we're used to. Every Minute of Every Day was the title of that one. Welcome back to JJ. Welcome back to Ramya, Into the Space. A little heavy.
It's a beautiful piece. I gotta say, I really like that one. Lovely and heavy, absolutely heavy.
So I mean, we'll get into some of the heavy stuff in a moment. Because we have Torontonians with us that can maybe just, talk a bit about some of again, there's a lot of spaces that they talk about in this particular, it's almost a love story when you think about it, truly, like it's a form of a love story. But, they mentioned Royal York and the CN Tower and Massey Hall, and the two of you are Torontonians, so maybe you can, and we can start with you, JJ. Maybe you've got some interesting history or one of these particular places that you want to just unpack.
So many of these places are important in my life too. I mean, it's a great way to tell a story is by taking a look at locations that are important to people, some for big reasons, some for small reasons, some coffee shops, and some grand moments. And to string them all together to kind of tell a life story that way. And as you say, I am a Torontonian, I'm a Toronto boy. So a lot of these places are important to me as well. The Royal York Hotel is a gorgeous downtown hotel. I always think it looks like a throne. The building itself has a platform of I think it's 3 or 4 stories, and then in a large tall back with a green copper roof, and there are two wings on either side that are parallel to each other but perpendicular to the back. So it creates this look. The building itself looks like a throne. And inside, it has one of these glorious old school hotel lobbies, and now has been refurbished. So the marble is polished, and the original kind of deco-y looking light fixtures and clock are in beautiful shape, and the leather furniture. I one time several years ago. It was a friend's 40th birthday, and I sent her on a wild goose chase all through the city. Yeah, it was a really elaborate scavenger hunt, and I sent her all the way through the city, and the end was in the lobby of the Royal York Hotel, because it was a moment where I knew she could walk into the space and feel the grandeur of the city, to feel like it was a place of history, and she could flop down in one of these big, beautiful leather lobby chairs, and we could get a drink from the library bar and just take in the greatness of the city at the hotel like that. So I love the Royal York. And then the CN Tower, I thought a lovely choice to not go up the CN Tower, but to stay at the bottom, because it is just as impressive from the bottom, but it's a completely different experience to be at the bottom and looking up at this amazing structure. You can see how it's built with the three wings of the building that kind of come together to form the tower. It's not a solid knitting needle that goes up. It's got these three kind of arms to it that meet in the center, and that's where the elevator shafts are. And so that when you sit there, you can kind of get in close. I loved, there was a moment when she spoke at the end of the bit where they were at the CN Tower. She yelled, and you could hear the echo, which is an interesting sensation, to be at the bottom of the CN Tower, and you can get in close enough that you can like feel you can hear the echo of your voice reverberating around these little, and there's almost a cement little room that gets made for yourself there. Anyway, I really liked that too. I mean, piece by piece, Massey Hall, Young Dundas Square, the sadness of the way Sam the Record Man had these famous signs.
I actually remember Sam the Record Man, because I lived in Mississauga for so I was in the Toronto area as a kid. And
would you come into Sam the Record Man and
I did once
flip through the CDs?
I think with one of my parents, I might have been in there. So I remember the name of it. Ramya, how about for you? Are any of these places like particular, pull at your heartstrings or?
Yeah, I gotta say, this whole play throughout, I just felt like this really deep sadness. I don't know exactly how to point it out. I mean, it's just like this really somber feel, right? There's this conflict, this friction between the two characters, and in the end it kind of wraps up, and throughout it wraps up in like sharing experiences, but in remembering and going down memory lane. And because I grew up in Toronto, I felt like I was going down memory lane in similar aspects, right? Like there were just parts of it, especially talking about not going up the CN Tower. There were so many times where I would only do the tourist thing of the CN Tower when family was visiting from other countries. And, they would ask like, oh, so you don't go up? And I'm like, why would I go up? It's so expensive and yada, yada, and things like that. So that's kind of memorable. And then especially the TTC, like the transit stuff that was being talked about, the experience of, missing transfers or Broadview Station and Chester Station and like that whole Danforth line. Because to me, the Bloor Danforth line always feels like the classic line, because I never grew up on the Young University line. So that always felt like the quote bougie line for me, especially when the new trains got up there. So talk about like changes to Toronto. When the new trains went up on the Young University line, I was kind of boycotting it for a bit. I'm like, damn it, new trains, like this doesn't feel like Toronto at all. I was very like old school and bring back the old trains. Yes, I was very resistant. I was like, I can't believe you can walk through the whole train, because I loved going from compartment to compartment. I'd start at Kennedy Station, and if I was meeting a friend at Kipling, but we decided we were going to meet at the other end of the platform, like, oh, guess I got to walk through the platform and that kind of stuff. So this was so nostalgic for me. And then of course, Scarborough Bluffs. When I was growing up, my parents, we never called it the Scarborough Bluffs. We called it Brimley Beach, because we would take Brimley Road down to the start of the beach, right? So this has always been a thing in my heart where, we think of it as Scarborough Bluffs. We know it as Scarborough Bluffs now, that the part of the beach there. But for me growing up, it was Brimley Beach. So anything that has to do with it just feels like nostalgia, because that was my experience of water in Toronto. We never went to Center Island and things like that. It was always Brimley Beach, aka Scarborough Bluffs. So that was our kind of beach experience. But yeah, it was a lovely experience listening to this play.
We've got a couple of hands, so let's just ask Tammy to unmute, and then we've got Megan on deck. So Tammy, when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. First of all, yes, a lot of memories about some of the landmarks in Toronto. I lived in Hamilton for quite a long time and went to my first rock concert at Maple Leaf Gardens without my parents. That was really fun.
Who was it, Tammy? Who was it?
It was Styx.
Nice.
Yes, it was fun. Just some memories there in the Royal York Hotel, a lot of sports awards banquets. I went, when I was competing in sort of Paralympic type sports. So a lot of memories, first of all. And second of all, the play was very interesting. And it kind of leaves you, I don't know, like at first, I really liked how at first it just seemed like two people, who hadn't seen each other in a while and had some conflict and were just getting together for some reason. And at the end, it was kind of left like, oh my goodness, like maybe it's just the one person who's traveling, like it in a way it's a little bit eerie, but at the same time, it was just a really beautiful play. Like it was, because at the end, it kind of left you wondering like, okay, maybe it's just this one sister or whatever who was there, whoever, it just, I don't know, that really struck me, just how, I don't know, just a little bit of eerie type feeling, but also a very beautiful play about relationships and about, forgiving and so
it's
very beautiful play.
Really cleverly written that way, right?
It was very clever, yes.
To keep you on the end. And I don't know this for sure. I might have missed this, but are they actually suggesting that this friend died of COVID?
Yeah.
Because that's the feeling I got too, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't, I don't
wondered
remember
about that too.
specifically saying.
Yeah. I think they did a lovely job of they didn't spoon feed us.
No, it's really great.
They made sure you had to listen to it and come up with your own ideas and your own opinions. For me, the key line at the end was when the one sister said, "I think my take is sister, but who knows, right?"
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
But the one line at the end when she says, I'm just following your instructions," and for me, that's the key line. I think this might be she was on a path. Couldn't be with her sister in the actual moments of her death when she was in hospital, probably with COVID, and so she left behind, here's a list of places to go where we had shared experiences, where we had where our life is, and so maybe you can go and visit these places, and maybe she's imagining what conversations she would have been having with her sisters, what arguments, what tension, beautifully,
but it was
beautifully
clever.
Executed.
And the other thing that's really interesting about the way that's set up is because they don't specifically say sisters, although they kind of reference the father that like they both, but still, like with my best friend growing up, I would call, I might call him Poppy or Daddy too, right? Like, so, and with not specifically telling us the reason behind the death, it means that it's relatable to more people, because you can imagine yourself in a relationship with a friend or a family member in which maybe that resonates with you for different reasons. So I really thought it actually is my favorite out of the 5 audio plays that we've heard.
I agree.
I want to invite Megan, because Megan's got a hand. I'll give Megan a chance to unmute.
Okay. Actually, I've been to the CN Tower. I actually went on the elevator up the tower, and I was like right up at the top. I understand if she was kind of nervous, like no, I don't want to go up to the tower. She's worried that she doesn't want to. It sounded like she was afraid of heights, but it kind of reminds me of like before COVID, I was in Toronto and I went to the CN Tower, and I paid for the. I paid for for the fee to enter, and I went to the elevators, but there was some security. So what I had to do was I had to go through this machine, and this scanning machine, and it says, please check your pockets, and it starts blowing your blowing your legs just to see if anything's in there. You know what I mean? Like it scans, and it does that, you know, all that like that blowing on your pants just to see if anything flies out of the pocket, that kind of thing.
Well, why is that? That's not familiar to me. Is that because you're in an outdoor area when you get to the top and they don't want like projectiles falling off of the building?
Yeah, you can't have a hat that's going to blow off or anything like that.
No. It was before that. It was when I first came into the the first time I went to see like I first went in and I had to do this well, it was like a security thing.
You had to do it before you went to the top of the tower.
Yeah, before I went into the elevator.
That's the question that we're trying to figure out is what's the reason. But as JJ pointed out, you know, if you're in a space where you can drop things off the top of the building.
Almost like that. Yes.
Yeah, there are parts of the building where parts of at the top of the CN Tower where you're inside and you're at windows, but there's an open air deck as well where you can get right out there. Have you ever been up? You have been up, Ramya, to go with family and what do you think of that? The outdoor experience? Do you prefer the outdoor or the
one?
No,
I didn't do that one. No, but I should do that again. I really should get back to Toronto again and actually do that and redo the whole thing again. But also, I was wondering what was moldy house? I never heard of that. An 18th century house, I heard.
Okay. At the very beginning when we were talking about the factory, the factory theater, the Mulvey House, John Mulvey House.
Mulvey, yes.
Yeah. So that was a house that was attached to another building, and together that's what makes the factory theater, is those two buildings, Mulvey.
Okay. Now I get it. Okay.
Thanks,
Megan. The Moldy House brings a whole nother picture.
Where is the factory theater in Toronto?
Downtown at Bathurst in Adelaide.
Bathurst in Adelaide. Okay.
Yeah.
Bathurst in Adelaide. Okay.
Maybe we'll catch you there sometime.
Thanks, Megan, for sharing your thoughts.
Oh, you're so welcome.
We've got another hand from Richard, and then we've got Louise. Just give a moment.
We
got you.
Can you hear me?
You're pretty gremlin-y, Richard. Yeah, no, we can't hear you.
I gotta disconnect. Just take Louise, and then I'll come in.
I think I heard you say take Louise. All right, Louise, you're up, my friend. Well, Richard battles the gremlins.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I took a different line in the last few lines than you guys did. Yes, I do say they're sisters. Okay. There's a line that caught me, and I don't know the exact wording of it, so I'm going to be very close to the wording. She made the comment, if it but only been a week sooner or something.
Yes.
A week. That line. I don't know if that meant she was having surgery. She had health problems, not COVID-19. So I just wanted to share that. I wonder, was it really COVID-19? Because that line 1 week. Now, I can't say the exact wording, but that line that line caught me. Like, is it COVID-19 or is it something else she had a health issue with?
Yeah, I
And
wondered
Louise,
that
it's
too.
because she also said we had a plan, right?
Yeah.
Something like we had a plan if only it was a week sooner, things like that. So I wondered the same thing, if she had to go to the hospital for a specific reason, but ended up it killing her, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I wondered if maybe they had a trip planned together. She was going to come into Toronto and visit.
That's what I think too.
And then maybe put it off. And in the time that they had put it off, she got sick or had to go into the hospital, and then it spiraled.
Because you'd have to put I mean, you know, if we're talking about COVID, you'd have to put a trip off.
Yeah.
Because of COVID. And then what's the irony that that's the thing that separates the two.
But I'm just saying, it's I don't know.
It's hard to know, Louise. It's really
they've done that on purpose.
Yeah.
And it took me a while when they were standing at the last spot when they got out of the car there. I'm like, when she got out of the car, was looking around and talking. I'm like, you know, there's been bad blood, but love too.
Yeah.
You know, there's something that happened that was painful, and we never know what that was.
Yeah.
That again, isn't that the other thing that's beautiful about this, is that like we all have that in a relationship with somebody, right? Sorry, Ramya, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. I'm agreeing. And the thing is, now having listened to the whole thing, when you go back to that first scene where there's a lot of tension, right, with the visit starting off and it kind of being like, well, are you surprised I'm here? You know, that kind of thing. I'm now interpreting that as like, wow, it took her a while to accept, right? Or to come to terms, to actually build the courage to come down to Toronto and go through this.
That's right. And is she talking to herself when she says, you know, did you think I'd come? Did you think I'd get here? Or why? You know, I wasn't saying I didn't think it. You know, maybe that's part of her conversation with herself. Do you think I'd make it? I don't know. You know.
And that's probably also why she doesn't get out of the car to go up the CN Tower, right? It's like a part of that is you're maybe in the car by yourself and you're just sort of driving past the landmarks, and you would have gone up with your friend, but you're not ready to do that yet.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. But that's kind of the interesting part of
that's why that part, when you think about that part and put that sentence I said, think about it. Is there more to this than just COVID-19? Was there other health issues?
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing that out. So there's just my question, and I just thought to share. So I'll mute so that someone else can ask a question.
Thank you, Louise. It's a great conversation piece. So thanks for sharing that. Let's see if Richard has battled the gremlins.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
That's amazing. So that's what I get for trying to talk to you while I was still casting this to another sound system. So I kind of like, it was interesting at first. I was kind of wondering, well, what is their relationship? Were they like, I kind of got the feeling that they were definitely sisters. And at one point I thought, well, maybe were they lovers as well too? Like, it was really interesting, that dynamic as well too. And they clearly hadn't seen each other for a while, but at the end, when it was sort of revealed that the other person had died in the hospital alone, and then I sort of came to realization, okay, this was her final trip to Toronto. She decided to go on the trip and then do the things that they probably would have done together. Part of me kind of wondered, was she actually, like, she was clearly by herself, but did she have her friend's remains with her, or sister's remains with her? And then when she did get out of the car at the beach, and did she go spread her sister's remains at the beach as per her instructions? Because there was that line, I'm following your instructions.
Yeah. I wondered the same thing. I wondered the same thing, Richard. Yeah. And especially with the last two stops being the looking out over the city and the bluffs, either one of those spots, I was wondering if that would be, but you know.
Yeah. And I didn't live in Toronto, but it was so funny to sort of hear them talk about how things have changed, because the number of years of having friends in Toronto, I've been to Toronto a number of times, and you kind of see things change, and I haven't been there for a few years, and I'm sure it's quite a bit different even since then too. It's like out here in Vancouver, like if you haven't been to Vancouver for 20 years, you wouldn't recognize it, kind of thing.
Yeah, there are large stretches. You know, they talk about the 401 at the beginning and the condo development and down and the young Dundas Square. My brother lives, he was born and raised in Toronto. He now lives in Thailand. And every time he comes back, it's a year or two has gone by. And he's shocked every single time because it grows so quickly, so much so quickly. And the highways that come into the city are now lined with condos on either side. So there's a corridor between these condos. It's quite extraordinary. And young Dundas Square that is packed with giant screens with advertisements in all directions. Really dramatic changes to the city, and I know Vancouver very much the same.
Well, and young Dada Square. So when they said that about the screens, I'm thinking I don't recall, but last time I was in Toronto, I didn't walk through there, but I remember before it was kind of like this, almost like a neighborhood square, yet right split smack dab in the middle of Toronto. They kind of gave it more of a smaller town feel in the sense of square itself, because it was so isolated from Yonge Street at the one end of it.
Yeah. Oh, now it's absolutely surrounded by giant screens, and the square itself is rather uninspired. It's mostly just a concrete square that allows you to stand and watch the screens. You know, they're getting a little bit better with using that space. So there are some small festivals. They have movie nights there. They're doing a little bit more, or they were before the pandemic. They're doing a little bit more to use that space because it had just turned into nothing but an advertising platform. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Richard, for sharing your thoughts.
You're welcome.
We've got a hand from Betty. See what Betty has to say.
Hi, Amy and everybody. I wondered if it was sort of like two different scenes and the end part was after the original visit, or if the whole thing was one person going down memory lane and, you know, her sister had died. And that's the interesting thing about the play, because you don't really know which it is. You know, is she just imagining all of these conversations and imagining going out for a walk and wishing that they had repaired their relationship, or did they actually have that visit and that trip down memory lane, and then later on her sister died? So that was really quite fascinating.
Yeah,
I enjoyed both plays. They were great.
And the other thing that's really great about actually all of them in the series of 5, if you joined us, you know, a few weeks back for the other 3, is the audio quality, right? Like the producers and creators at Factory Theater that put these plays together. Not only was the storytelling lovely, but I really felt like I was, you know, in the back of a cab with this woman or an Uber or whatever on this journey, because I could hear the sounds of the city and I could hear the birds at the lookout and all of that kind of stuff. And that just enriches the storytelling for me. How about for you, Ramya? Because you're mostly audio based too, right?
Absolutely. I was going to say for both plays, the soundscaping was incredible. Like you can tell when, you know, Betty, you're talking about, you know, was this whole thing a memory, or were there parts of it that they did share a trip? And you could feel that, like you feel that from the way that they've added some ambiance or added, you know, that bit of reverb right at the end there that makes you think, okay, she's pulling out of the memory bit now, right? Or the fantasy bit, and she's coming into real life. It's just done so well. I'm not sure how difficult it was to do it remotely through this time creating these series, but it was great. And I also love the 2 Celine Dion references, one in each play.
The urge to sing too, and I was like, thank goodness I'm on mute.
I think, having heard all 5, I think there was I'm guessing maybe a list of specific phrases, ideas, and notions, something that was handed to all of the different writers. So obviously the title, "You Can't Get There From Here," that was everywhere. The Tim Hortons everywhere. I'm wondering if Celine was, I got to think back to the first 3. I can't remember, but I think maybe a Celine reference was in all 3.
Very subtle, but
really fun way to do that. Really fun way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, there was either because a couple of them had sporting references in them as well.
That's
like
right.
Toronto sporting references. So yeah, there's definitely some common themes, and I think you're probably right. I think in terms of writing these things, they were given a set of parameters to try and fit in, which is I also very creative way of writing. Even if you haven't written your piece and you're commissioned to do it for this, or sometimes these pieces have already been written and then you got to slide it in there sometimes.
Exactly.
Right.
Figure out where you're going to add these little nuggets. Speaking of Tim Hortons, we've got one more hand. All right, I'm going to take one more hand from Myra. Sorry, Myra. Let you unmute yourself. Yeah, we got you.
I love the subtle references to things like the coffee shop jet fuel, which is not that big and it sort of caters to bikers and whatever. And I think it's part of their culture for the baristas to be grumpy. They're always grumpy in there. And it's such a funny thing to hear it mentioned in this context, because I've never been in or known anybody that's been there when they haven't been grumpy. I think it's their character. The other thing I love was talking about, about the Royal York Hotel. When I was a kid and we lived on Centre Island, you could look across and the Royal York Hotel was the tallest thing on the city, on the landscape there, on the scape. And now I understand that it's hard to pick it out among all the huge buildings around it. But it was very interesting. I was just waiting when they got to Sam the Record Man for them to go up the street to the A&A record store, but they didn't do that. Mm-hmm. And that was another of my haunts, and it was like half a block north of Sam the Record Man. But it's very, very interesting, fascinating place, fascinating play. I have to say that I found the first play more joyful. Like if I had to say, could I only go through, listen to one play again, I'd have to say the first one because it made me happy. This one leaves me really into many things. Yeah. Anyways, it's amazing play, and I love the discussion. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Myra. Appreciate that. Yeah, oh yeah, we'll take care of all of that for you. When the first time I've listened to these plays a couple of times, but the first time I listened to specifically this one that we just heard, I was not expecting the ending to be that way. I knew there was going to be some kind of hook at the end, like some kind of change, but I wasn't expecting that. But it just, I mean, and again, I think the reason that I like it so much is because the writing keeps me asking questions. Yeah. Which I find really interesting as a listener, and sometimes frustrating because I just want to know the answers. Just tell me the answer.
Right. But... Yeah. And I think this is one, I certainly agree that the first one had more joy to it and was, had some more energy to it. And I enjoyed and appreciated that. But the second piece, sticks with me a little bit more. It's one that I kind of gonna go back to and think about what are those spaces in my life, and a lot of them they're overlapping, right? The specific spaces that are part of my thread, my story, and and the way that it was laid out without all of the answers already included, really does, it leads you, it stays with you because of that. You have to come back to it. You have to revisit it. And you have to imagine it, piece by piece, beautifully put together.
Yes, absolutely. It keeps you following the path and you're never sort of bored about it. Actually, I wasn't bored with any of these audio dramas. They're all very, very good writing, very different stories. Very diverse in terms of relationships and people, and just the kind of storytelling I like. But now that we're talking about common themes and places that resonate, let's just talk about the big elephant. I'm going to call it the big elephant, which is the Tim Hortons, because it's in all of them, and some people loved it and some people hated it. So final question, because it's related to our draw. Our draw is the Tim Hortons prize. I'm going to go to Ramya with this question first. Ramya, like Tim Hortons? Don't like Tim Hortons?
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to be controversial and say I'm kind of over Timmy's.
Was that before or after it sold and became an American company? No offense to our Americans on the line, but it was like there was this big thing when it became an American company. We're like, what? All of our Canadian companies are now purchased by other countries.
Unconsciously, that's got to be it, Amy. But really, it's because I'm over the ice caps and I've moved on to the Frappuccinos at Starbucks. So yes, I do get less of them a year because of the cost, but I feel them better.
Probably better for the waistline though, too, hey? Right. JJ, how about you? Loving Tim's, hating Tim's?
Yeah, I'm not so much of a huge Tim's fan. You know, the only time we tend to get a Tim Hortons around here is if we're completely out of coffee. We don't have any in the house. So you go to, there's a Tim Hortons close by, and you can get an extra large black coffee, bring it home, and then doctor it with, you know, whatever you've got around the house and stretch it out until someone can run out. And,
this was an awful question for me to ask as we're giving out a prize to Tim Hortons. Listen, Tim Hortons has a lot of great stuff in Tim Hortons, and you know, ice caps are fabulous. You just don't want to have one every week because you're right. You're like, ooh, too much sugar. Donuts are fabulous. And I have to admit, I kind of like some of their soups. And what's nice to me about Tim Hortons is it doesn't matter where I am. I have an expectation of what I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when you go to a place for the first time and you eat something, you're like, I'm so disappointed. I probably should have gone to Tim's, right? Because like it's the same with any of these big chains. You kind of have this expectation of what you're going to get, the value for the money, and there's consistency in all of these places. So,
you know what? I'm totally with you on that, Amy. I'm totally, I was just going to say, when I was backpacking across Canada in the winter, way back when.
It was your comfort zone?
My afternoon in the middle of the day, I was always freezing because I was outside all the time. And what I would allow myself was to go into Tim Hortons, and I would get a medium hot chocolate in an extra large cup and a medium coffee. And I would pour the coffee into the hot chocolate. It was fantastic. And that was my warm me up. I could stay inside the Tim Hortons. I could, you know, and that was, as you say, the experience you knew you could have. It didn't matter whether I was in Regina or if I was, you know, in Halifax, or it's anywhere in between. You could have the same experience. So I very much appreciate that, for sure.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we can all find, not that I want to go down that rabbit hole now, but we can all find moments in a Tim's that have brought us pure joy, truly. And I'm going to just give a shout out to my friend. She knows who she is, who we used to meet at the Tim Hortons on Joy Street. And that those meetings, the meeting with her before our meetings in the CNIB were full of joy. And so I remember that. That's my joyful Timmy's experience. So
my wife and I wrote our wedding vows in a Tim Hortons.
See, right? Okay, Ramya, have you got a joy at Timmy's Joy?
Well, I was gonna say, when JJ, you and your wife's wedding vows, I helped my friend write her wedding vows like 12 hours before her wedding at a Timmy's also. So that's what I was picturing.
Awesome.
Nice.
On a napkin? Tell me it was on a napkin, on a Tim Hortons napkin.
It was on a napkin with a red pen.
Awesome. Well, with that, friends, I think we better get to our draw, which is a Tim Hortons prize package. And if you're not living in Canada and don't have a Tim Hortons, we're going to send you a little goodie something from Tim Hortons that you can enjoy. So Ramya, I'm going to invite you to participate in the draw tonight. Everybody who identifies as blind or partially sighted and is on our guest list this evening is entered into this draw. So I wonder if we've got Sarah with us. We may not, but somebody from VocalEye will appear momentarily. We do have Sarah. There's Sarah. Sorry. Welcome, Sarah. So Ramya, maybe Tim Hortons is just the word you got to shout out. I don't know. What do you think?
I'll shout out Timmy's. Yes.
All right. So Sarah and Ramya, I leave it in your hands. Sarah, go ahead.
Great. Whenever you're ready, I am just mixing up the names here.
Okay. And Timmy's.
Wonderful. Our winner tonight is, and I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but I'm going to try my best. It's Dar Warnell.
Oh, Dar, wonderful. So glad you could join us this evening. Dar's won a prize package from Tim Hortons. Dar is still on the line, right? Just making sure. Still got Dar with us in the space.
Yes.
I am. Thanks so much.
Oh, there you
Appreciate
are,
that.
Dar. Awesome. Well, we'll connect with you offline to figure out how to get you
all the way
your
from
prize.
Halifax. Can you
All
imagine
the
what
way.
time it is where she is right
You
now?
don't want to know.
Go
Wow.
Dar.
Uber
Dar
future.
right on. Dar right on.
Uber
My other half
future.
beside me snoring, so.
Talk about dedication.
Yeah. With that, friends, I just want to wish JJ and Ramya a lovely evening. A big thank you from all of us for being here, being our guides again to the Torontonian experience, and for everybody for chipping in your memories and whatnot. And if you'd like to turn your devices off and go to bed, you're most welcome to do that. And anybody who wants to stick around and just chat for another 10 minutes or so, we'll leave the lines open. But big thanks to Ramya and JJ for joining us tonight.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Amy. It's been a pleasure.
Have a good night.